What you're about to listen to is a retelling of the events that led up to the killing of a woman called Hallow by Keeper Sergeant Paul. This will be submitted with my report to the Keeper Captain and my friend Tah, who was also involved in this incident. A few days ago, I was called down to the hospital to take a statement. A couple of people from the town that I actually knew had been attacked. And of course, we can't have that. We can't have anyone in our town being attacked randomly. It's dangerous, it's not right. So, the couple that were attacked, one's a young man called Tegan, brother to Lucky, who's a keeper. And the woman is a worker at the hospital called Sinthia. Probably one of the first people I spoke to when I arrived in town, and she's helped me a great deal. So I was more than happy to go down and take the statement. Turns out there was a woman called Hallow that had attacked them. Now apparently Hallow, Tegan and his sister Lucky had some sort of history with her. There's a lot of details that I'm going to be leaving out as they're already being submitted in the report I've already made. But what you need to know is that she attacked them and Tegan put a bullet in her arm before she fled. So now there is a dangerous woman running around, and unfortunately we don't have the manpower to turn the city upside down to find her. Next day, I go down to the hospital again to talk to Sinthia, find out how Tegan was doing. He was a bit beaten up. And fucking Hallow turned up. Now you see, when you're in the hospital, you've got to take your weapons off unless you're a staff member. You can't be armed in there. This is for the safety of the staff. So there I am, in the waiting room, Hallow just outside, and I've got no fucking gun. This would have all been over there and then, if I had one. Anyway, she seen Sinthia, saw her face, knew it was the woman from before, knew where she worked now. Sinthia was shook up. By the time I got out there and got my weapons, Hallow was gone. Fast forward a little bit, she manages to get her hands on Lucky. Takes a radio, starts telling us shit that if we don't bring her brother, she's gonna kill her. So, I haven't dealt with situations like this before, but all I could really do was ask the captain and find out what our next plan of action was. Now she gave us a time limit, so we had plenty of time. But come the next day, I found Lucky in a hospital bed. Apparently Hallow had left her there. Turns out she took Sinthia instead. So now Sinthia is kidnapped. This Hallow woman still wants Tegan, and Lucky is out of commission and still resting up in hospital as far as I'm aware. So I come up with every possible scenario plan that I could possibly think of, and I tell you what, that was a mistake. I like to think I've survived this long by being smart and making sure I don't do things that are stupid. So I overthink, I plan and plot and just make sure that I'm not going to go into any dangerous areas. At least that's what I was doing when I was travelling. But I'll talk about that another time. So I came up with situations on how we were going to do this. Now, it sounded like she wanted Tegan as some sort of plaything. I don't know, it sounded like she was obsessed with him. Turns out that was true, but not the reasons we originally thought. So another day passes while we try to track down Tegan. He was somewhere on the island and we didn't have the manpower to find him. Eventually I get my hands on him and I talk to Tah and we come up with a plan. We were going to go over there. We were going to have Tegan acting like he didn't want to go to this Hallow bitch, and from there we were just going to take her down and hopefully get Sinthia out, and if he was struggling we could bring two of us, because the stipulation was we'd go unarmed and there's only one keeper there. But yeah, so thanks to Tegan's acting we were able to take two. Tah took his shield and we explained to her, we only want the nurse, we don't give a fuck what you do to this boy. The nurse is more valuable to the town. And as far as we were concerned, this was all the boy's fault. At least that's what we told her. I don't know how Tah felt, but that's what I was saying anyway. Bit of bluffing. So I strapped my M9 Beretta to the back of Tegan's back. It's the only place I could think to put it without her seeing. We go down there. We meet at some docks. It looked like someone had been down there recently. There was a big shark hung up, currently bleeding out all over the dock. I don't know who fishes down there because none of that fish ever makes it up to town. Anyway, we go down, we exchange some words. We stay behind Tah on the shield, you know, keeping him covered, because the last thing we want to do is have Tegan shot. And right there and then, see, me and Tah, we talked about this before we went in, whether or not we should take a rifle, have Tah sit somewhere and wait for a clear shot, or if we both go down. I wish he took the fucking rifle, because as soon as we got down there, she was standing there and Sinthia was tied up on the ground. Clear fucking shot. Now, I wasn't in the position to get the gun off Tegan's back. That would have been too risky, but if we had that sniper somewhere, maybe up at the water tower, this could have all been avoided, or all done with nice and simple, no problems. Anyway, hindsight's a lovely thing to have, but unfortunately we didn't have it. So, she starts threatening to kill Sinthia if Tegan didn't start walking, because we insisted that if I let go of Tegan, he would bolt. This was a way that we could both move up. Well, I think Hallow saw through that. Threatened Sinthia, and of course Tegan ignored my advice earlier about listening to what we say. He got out my grip, came out from behind the shield, and bam. Hallow shot him in the chest. So from there, it was go time. Tah moved up, raising his shield, starting to move towards her, trying to get Sinthia back. Me, I was reaching for my M9 on the back of Tegan's back before falling in behind Tah. Now, we had been practicing, us keepers. Shields are a really good fucking thing to have, but I'll talk about that another time. So she slips behind that hung up shark, and Tah fucking rushes the shark, driving the shield into it as hard as he could, and since that shark was on the hook, it swung into her as she was trying to go over the fucking shack wall. I think it caught a foot or something. Me, I flanked round, firing some blind shots off over the side. I didn't want to get too close, didn't want to get shot myself. And she was still moving. I think I managed to clip her, I'm not sure. Anyway, she ends up behind the bar, and I've moved up. I've got my gun trained over there, doing a couple of shots. Now, I only had one magazine, so I had to make sure every shot counted. So I was trying to space my shots out, just keep it pushed down as long as I could. Tah was able to get Tegan back with the help of Sinthia. Tegan wasn't really doing too good, but I didn't have time to check. Couple more shots, I noticed that there's a fucking lantern on top of the bar. I sat and shot that way, and I didn't know if this would work, but it did. The lantern basically exploded and oil and fire went everywhere, and it was just what was needed to make her pop her head up. Now I was waiting, I was sat there ready, because I wasn't going to go anywhere near her while she was down there and armed. All I knew is if I stay out there, stay in relatively good cover and be ready, I should be able to take her down. And I caught sight of the top of her head slowly moving up as she was ready to come up and take another shot. Without hesitation, I pulled that trigger and she went down. Now I don't know if I hit, it looked like I did. Now that I think back, I do seem to recall seeing blood, but honestly, everything's starting to feel like a bit of a blur. But somehow, for all that, she managed to get a shot off anyway. Lucky for me, since it was mostly a blind shot. It just grazed my arm. I didn't really feel it at first, it wasn't until later I noticed it stinging. And as I said, it was only a graze. Nothing serious. Not to mention with all that adrenaline pumping, I don't think I'd have felt it anyway if it would have hit me direct. I move up. She's down on the ground, not moving. I think the bullet killed her outright, but as I said, I've never killed anyone before. I've seen movies, I've played video games. I've also read stories of people being shot in the head and still surviving, so I didn't know what to do. The only thing I could think of doing was raising my gun, putting 2 more shots into her chest and then 1 more in her head. At that point, I was pretty confident she was dead. I didn't really give her any second thoughts after that. I was already turning to leave. The fire that was burning around the bar had already caught onto her clothes and she was starting to cook. And I made my way with Tah, the wounded Tegan and Sinthia back to the hospital. Now, the hospital was pretty quiet. There was not much else I could do there, and my arm was starting to hurt as the adrenaline wore off. And I just went back to the pub. Luckily, shortly after I arrived, the pub's owner, Kali, and her cousin, Inky, turned up. And Kali was kind enough to have a look at my arm and patched it up. And I gotta say, moonshine on any kind of open wound is so fucking painful. That's all the events that had transpired. And it's only really starting to sink in that I've taken another life. And I've killed lots of infected, but I don't see infected as humans anymore, but Hallow. When she shot Tegan, she was talking about getting revenge for her son. I don't know what that was about, but she was definitely human, and I killed her. Anyway, I should probably make my way down to the hospital, make sure Cinthia's okay, make sure Tegan's doing okay and is not dead, and break the news to his sister about everything that happened. One thing's for certain though, if this ever happens again, there'll be no fucking negotiations.